Can you find my slide? Is that clear?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Yes,
it
sir.
is clear.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what is the title of my slide?
The role of pragmatics in English language teaching, pragmatic competence.
Okay. So in the previous meeting or last week, we have already discussed about this kind of the topics, but actually we are still in being continued because I didn't find any any kind of materials about the communicative competence, and then it will be continued into the further information about what are or what is actually the role of pragmatics in English language teachings. Because as mahasiswa jurusan pendidikan bahasa Inggris, sometimes you think that why do we need pragmatics and why do we need to learn pragmatics, and is it necessary learning pragmatic in the real context of English language teaching, right? Apa sih pentingnya pragmatics, and kenapa sih harus belajar pragmatic padahal kita orang-orang pendidikan? Some question will raise something like that, right? So the second slide, can you see it?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Good. Then, if I'm not mistaken, it will be this one, the end of the sessions. Last. Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Hello?
Hello, sir.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
Dina Aulia.
Yes, sir.
Okay, read it please. Communicative competence.
Communicative competence. Widowson, 1989, 135 described the communicative competence. Communicative competence is not a matter of knowing rules for the composition of sentences and being able to employ such rules to assemble expressions from scratch as and when occasion requires. It is much more a matter of knowing a stock of virtually pre-assembled patterns, formulaic frameworks, and a kit of rules, so to speak, and being able to apply the rules to make whatever adjustments are necessary according to contextual demands. Communicative competence, in this view, is essentially a matter of adaptation, and rules are not generative but regulative and subservient.
Okay, thank you. Yes, it is one of the definitions that is described by Widowsons. Okay, so Widowson described that communicative competence is not a matter of knowing rules for the composition and communicative rules, the composition of the sentences. It means that while you do communicating with some others, right, you really ignore the form of the language, the form of the utterance. For example, when you come to Bali Beach, to the beach, and so on and so on, there are so many, Balinese, and they are communicating with the foreigners, right? Do they study grammar? Of course not. Do they study a form? Of course not. Do they study sociolinguistic and so on? Of course not. All right. So what is the point of the Balinese people over there is focusing on this one, communicative competence. It does not matter of the knowing rules. It does not matter of the knowing grammar. It does not matter of the knowing syntax. But the matter is they know the meaning, all right, produced by the foreigners, and the foreigner get the meaning produced by the Balinese peoples. So that is the communicative competence. Okay, and for the composition of the sentences and being able to employ such rules to assemble expression from scratch as and when occasion requires, it is much more a matter of knowing a stock of partially pre-assembled patterns like formulaic frameworks and a kit of rules, so to speak, and being able to applying the rules to make whatever adjustment. So whatever adjustment here means that the Balinese people, they really know how to greet, right? Memberikan salam, how to ask the conditions, how to give the response, how to give the information, how to say the products, the price, the destination, and so on and so on. Okay, and this communicative competence is the views is essentially a matter of adaptations, and the rules are not generative but regulative and subservient. It means that while we do not know about the grammar, about the syntax, right, whatever the form, the point is you know the context, you know how to produce your sentence, you know how to produce your message, right? That is what is meant by regulative, all right. But that is not generative. It means uh, while you speak to the foreigners or Western peoples, you consider loss the grammar. Grammar betul apa enggak? Grammar kayak salah dan seterusnya dan seterusnya. Nah, itu generative. Okay. Then strategic competence. Read it please, one of you.
Strategic competence. Cannell and Swain, 1980, defined strategic competence as an ability which deals with the knowledge of language and the ability to use this knowledge effectively and appropriate to purpose in order to take an active part in communicative interactions.
Go on, as Ayrton's.
Yes. As Ayrton, 2007, page 64, further clarifies, strategic competence is the link that ties everything. Sorry, that, that ties everything together. A typical example for this case can be if you are late to a meeting and if
Mhm.
you need to find a good excuse, the white lie that you utter at that time is a product of your strategic competence, which reflects a criteria of the competence types that the language user has. However, under the title strategic competence, the critical and the creative aspect of the human mind can also be considered as well.
Thank you Gilang, very good.
Thank
Bagus
you,
nih
sir.
Gilang bacanya. Strategic competence, okay. Otherwise, it is the speed of communicative competence. Cannon and Swain define strategic competence as an ability. That is the ability, the skills, which deals with the knowledge of the language and the ability to use this knowledge effectively and appropriate to purpose in order to take an active part in communicative interaction. So we need to have something like strategy, right? In making the communications, in gaining the communications, in maintaining the communications, right? That is the strategy. Ayrton's further clarifies the strategy component is the link that ties everything together, right? A typical example of this case can be example-nya, if you are late, alright, to a meeting and if you need to find a good excuse, maka you akan menggunakan white lie, alright, you akan menggunakan white lie. Yet you atau at the time is a product of your strategic competence. Misalkan you terlambat pada meeting, kemudian you mengatakan tidak mengatakan terjebak macet, tapi mengatakan saya dari belakang, itu bagian dari itu
Ini,
bagian dari white lie and strategic
ya,
competence. Okay,
ini.
which reflects the criteria of the competence type that the language user has. However, the title strategic competence, the critical and creative aspect. Jadi, strategic competence itu deals with the critical and creative aspects of the human mind pada pikiran kita can be considered as well. That is the strategic competence. Next, discuss competence, please.
May I, sir?
Sir.
Discourse competence. As I mentioned, 1997, page 369, exemplifies there are many forms of discourse and many forms of talk exchange, letters, jokes, stories, lectures, sermons, speeches, and so on are all categories of discourse, arguments, interviews, business dealings, instruction, and conversations are categories of talk exchanges. Conversations or and talk exchanges in general are usually structured consequences of expressions by more than a single speaker. Therefore, the development of discourse competence helps the language learner to gain insight by in, I'm sorry, experiencing. Presentasinya hilang, Pak.
Huh? Sorry?
Sorry. Nggak, tadi hilang, Pak.
Oh, okay.
Presentasi. Okay. By experiencing different interactional patterns of varying sociocultural and physical contexts.
All right. So, talking about the discourse competence, all right. So there are some theories and some writers mentioning about the discourse competence, and as Ak mentions, okay, exemplifies that there are many forms of discourse and many form of talk exchange, like letters, like jokes, like stories, like lectures, like sermons. You know sermons? Sermons means ceramah, right? Khotbah, speeches, and so on are all categories of the discourse. Jadi semua ini bagian dari discourse. Arguments, interviews, business dealings, instructions, and conversations. Talks, exchange in generals, usually structured consequences of the expression by more than single speakers. Therefore, the development of the discourse competence help the language learners to gain insight by experiencing different interactional patterns in varying socio-cultural and physical contexts. That is the discourse competence. So, if you are interested in analyzing your scriptsy, dealing with letters, jokes, stories, lectures, sermon, speeches, right? Arguments, interview, business, or ada instruction, itu masuknya ke discourse competence. Gitu. Alright. Then pragmatic competence. Please. Okay, please.
My answer,
Sure. Who's speaking?
pragmatic competence. Pragmatic competence.
Normadian. Normadian.
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay.
Pragmatic competence. Pragmatic competence refers to the ability to comprehend, construct, and convey meanings that are both accurate and appropriate for the social and cultural circumstance in which communication occurs. Blackman said in Barron, 2003, he 173 identify pragmatic competence as one element of the communicative competence, placing pragmatic competence as part of philophotenary competence, which is a combination of speech acts and speech functions, along with the appropriate use of language in context. In simple terms, pragmatic is about culture, communication, and in the case of second language, about intercultural communication. In order for second language learners to acquire pragmatic competence, they need to acquire cultural understanding and communication skills.
Okay, thank you, Normadian. So after having practice course analysis and strategy competence, started from communicative competence, then we are going to have pragmatic competence. But the question is it appropriate for you that you have this such a kind of competence? Okay, apakah you memiliki kompetensi pragmatics or atau kompetensi discourse or competency communicative, right? Then we are going to take a look. So pragmatic competence refers to the ability to comprehend, construct, and convey meaning. Dia convey meaning, that is the pragmatics, that are both accurate and appropriate for the social and cultural circumstances in which communication occurs. In every communication occurs, we need to have this pragmatic competence. Ya, kalau kita nggak punya pragmatic competence, maka nanti komunikasi kita menjadi misunderstood, misleading, okay, mismeaning, and so on and so on. Blackman identified pragmatic competence as one of the elements of communicative competence, placing pragmatic competence as part of the illocutionary competence, which is combination of the speech act and speech functions, along with the appropriate use of the language context. So again, Pak, kenapa kalau ada kata pragmatik kok selalu berkaitan dengan speech act? Ya karena speech act adalah alatnya pragmatics. Okay, now speech and speech functions. Okay, in the simple terms, pragmatic is about the culture, it's about the communications. Okay, in the case of second language, it's about the intercultural communications. So while we do have something like this pragmatic works, okay, kita akan bekerja juga dengan culture, dengan communications, okay, dengan intercultural communications. That is the pragmatics. In order for second language learners to acquire pragmatic competence, they need to acquire cultural understanding and communication skills. So untuk mendapatkan skill atau kompetensi pragmatic competence, things that you need to introduce, you need to obtain, itu adalah cultural understanding, ya, cultural understanding and communication skills. Kalau satu di antaranya yang tidak bisa dikuasai, maka tidak bisa menguasai pragmatics. Or kalau nggak paham kulturnya, pasti dia juga secara pragmatik, karena dia menyampaikan meaning, maka meaning tidak bisa didapatkan. Alright. So that is the prerequisite of the pragmatic competence: cultural understanding and communication skills. Next, is going to read. Next, please. Next.
Why teach pragmatics in language classes?
Vika, okay, Vika, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, go on.
The study of pragmatics explores the ability of language users to match utterances with contexts in which they are appropriate. In Stalnaker's words, pragmatics is the study of linguistic acts and the context in which they are performed. The teaching of pragmatics aims to facilitate the learner's sense of being able to find socially appropriate language for the situations that they encounter. Within second language studies and teaching, pragmatics encompasses speech acts, conversational structure, conversational implicator, conversational management, discourse organization, and social linguistic aspects of language use, such as choice of address forms.
Next.
As per Dovi Herlich, 1996, advocate teaching pragmatics because, quite simply, observation of language learners shows that there is a demonstrated need for it and that instruction in pragmatics can be successful.
Thank you, Vika. Bagus nih Vika suaranya ya.
Thank you, sir.
Pronunciasinya bagus nih. Thank you. Bagus, bacanya bagus. Why teach pragmatics in language classes? It will be the same question as kenapa jurusan kita harus ada mata kuliah pragmatics? Kenapa di program studi pendidikan harus ada mata kuliah pragmatics? I don't know in other university. As far as I know, di prodi kita di UGRIS ada pragmatics. Nggak tahu kalau di UNES ya apakah ada pragmatics. Di UMK apakah ada pragmatics and so on and so on. I mean, in my opinion, pragmatics is not simple mata kuliah. It is not easy mata kuliah because you need to have something like deep understanding, something like deep thinking, something like deep comprehensions, right? Because we study about something in the abstracts, all right? We are not study about something which is real, gitu. So yeah, the question is why teach pragmatics in language classes? Karena pragmatics itu cenderung digunakan pada kelas-kelas linguistik ya. linguistik tetapi bukan pendidikan. Nah, ini kan language classes berarti kelas pendidikan. Alright. So the study of pragmatic explores the ability of language users to match utterances with the context in which they are appropriate. Jadi to match utterances, ya match utterances with the context. Apakah utterance ini sesuai dengan konteks yang disampaikan? Apakah utterance ini sesuai dengan konteks dan setting pada saat itu, and so on and so on. Oke, makanya itu pragmatics. Kita juga bisa menganalisis pragmatics something like, konteks dahulu dengan sekarang dalam berbudaya gitu ya, misalkan dalam berbudaya gitu. So zaman dahulu tidak ada kendaraan gitu kan. Kalau kita ingin mengikuti zaman dahulu ya kita nggak harus menggunakan kendaraan. Or zaman dahulu tidak ada telepon dan sekarang ada telepon, maka rapat tidak harus offline, tidak harus ketemu muka dan seterusnya, right? So that is part of the context gitu. Jadi ada bahasa-bahasa yang dulu oke dan sekarang sudah nggak oke lagi. Gitu. Ada yang setting yang dahulu oke dan sekarang sudah tidak sesuai dengan konteks lagi. Alright. So the teaching of pragmatics aim to facilitate learners' sense of being able to find socially appropriate language for the situation that they encounters within second language studies, and teaching pragmatics encompasses. Jadi teaching pragmatic itu encompasses speech act, ya, mengajarkan speech act, conversational structure, conversational implicature, conversational management, discourse organization, and socio-linguistic aspect of language use such as choice of interest form. So talking about the pragmatics, it is not far away from speech act. Ada locutionary, hyperlocutionary, conversational implicators. So bisa menganalisis suatu speech, suatu dialog, suatu conversation, and so on and so on. Itulah ruang lingkupnya pragmatics. As Berdovi Harlix advocate teaching pragmatics because quite simply observation of the language learner show that there is a demonstrated need for it and that is instruction in pragmatics can be successful. Kalau Alik menyampaikan sudahlah nggak usah yang susah-susah ya, coba saja membuat observasi penggunaan bahasa oleh mahasiswa misalkan, itu bagian dari pragmatik juga. Bagaimana mahasiswa speak to their friends, to their classmates, bagaimana mereka speak to lecturers, teachers, right, and so on and so on. Next, who's going to try to read? Next reader, please. Sure, Devi.
Yes. Why teach pragmatics in language classes? The first issue is to make language available to learners for observation. Some speech acts, such as invitation, refusals, and apologies, often take place between individuals, and so learners might not have the opportunity to observe such language without being directly involved in the conversation. The second issue is silence. Some necessary features of language and language use are quite subtle in the input and not immediately noticeable by learners. For example, the turns that occur before speakers actually say goodbye and the noises that we make when encouraging other speakers to continue their turns are of this type. Sorry, sir. Oh yeah. Differences in making requests by asking "can I" speaker-oriented versus "can you" hearer-oriented might not be immediately silent to learners. By highlighting features of language and language use, instruction can inform the learner.
Okay, Devi, thank you. Your pronunciation is really great. Bacanya bagus ya. Nah, kalau kalian bacanya kayak gini-gini ya, dari guru SMA atau dari guru SMP itu muridnya senang dengernya. Alright. Why teach pragmatic? Yeah, welcome. Why teach pragmatic in language classes? First isunya adalah to make language available to learners for observation. Some speech act such as bagaimana membuat invitations, bagaimana membuat refusals, penolakan, bagaimana membuat apologize, permintaan maaf, or take place between individuals. And so learners might not have the opportunity to observe such language without being directly involved in the conversation. Jadi dalam isu yang simple, bisa menganalisis pragmatic, sejauh mana pragmatic digunakan itu pada teaching interaction, gitu ya. Teaching interaction, bagaimana siswa mengucapkan apologize, bagaimana siswa mempraktekkan inviting, refusal, and so on and so on. And second issue is salience. Apa sih salience? Salience itu sangat penting ya. Salience itu sangat penting. Hal yang sangat penting. Some necessary features of the language and language use are quite subtle in the input and not immediately noticeable by learners. For example, the turns that occur before speaker actually say goodbye, and the noises that we make when encountering other speakers to continue their turns are this time. Differences in making requests by asking can I versus can you. Nah, very simple, dengan penggunaan can I dan can you itu pada konteks yang berbeda. Oke, so kalau kayak can I itu berarti speaker oriented, orientasi pada pembicaranya, pada dianya. Kalau can you itu berarti ada pendengar, orang yang diajak omong oriented. Gitu. May not be immediately salient to learners. Mungkin orang nggak begitu nggak begitu take into account, nggak begitu ngubris tentang ini, tetapi that is very important and salient. By highlighting features of language and language use, instruction can inform the learners. Jadi dalam language teaching ya, pragmatic kita gunakan pada instruction, pada language instruction. Language instruction itu apa? Ya, language accompanying actions. Gitu. Pada perintah-perintah penggunaan atau pengerjaan soal dan seterusnya. That is language instruction. Pada bahasa yang dipakai oleh dosen, oke? Nah, itu juga bagian dari language instructions. Right, next reader, please. Next reader, please. Next reader, please.
May I, sir?
Sir, siapa nih? Ivania, okay, Ivania, please. Yes.
The role of pragmatic competence in the process of teaching and learning a second language. We don't learn from experience. We learn from reflecting on experience. Dewey, 1938, page 13. Dewey make a simple but powerful point. Experience is not the source of learning, but rather it is reflection on this expression. The four skills in language learning, reading, writing, listening, and speaking do not occur in isolation in communicative texts or activities. In order to shape a good pragmatic competence for the language learner, the following should be taken into consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Ivania, thank you.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you, very good. So, kalian sebetulnya juga kalau saya minta untuk siapa yang mau baca aja gitu. Kalau salah kita kan jadi tahu. Alright. Jadi kalau misalkan ada pronunciation yang kurang baik gitu malah jadi tahu gitu, kita jadi bisa dengar suara kita sendiri gitu. Karena ini saya rekam, nanti kan saya berikan linknya. The role of pragmatic competence in the process of teaching and learning process. Jadi roles peranan pragmatic competence pada proses teaching and learning a second language. We don't learn from experience, we learn from reflecting on experience. Do we make a simple but powerful point? Experiences is not the source of learning, but rather it is reflection on this experience. The four skill of the language learning like reading, writing, listening, and speaking do not occur in isolation of the communicative text or activities. Jadi dia nggak berdiri sendiri gitu, right? Nggak berdiri sendiri. Reading competence berdiri sendiri, writing berdiri sendiri. While anyhow kalau kita ngomong bahasa Inggris kayak gini kan kita juga perlu juga skill listening, perlu juga skill reading untuk memberikan opini, juga apalagi skill speaking. Gitu. In order to shape a good pragmatic competence for language learners, jadi semuanya ini harus terintegrasi. Alright, the following should be taken into considerations. This is the consideration. Jadi yang dilakukan guru, alright, untuk mengenhance, untuk mengeksplor, untuk mengempower pragmatic competence itu ada di sini. Oke, ada di sini. Siapa yang mau baca? Reader, please. Puji Lestari. Nggak ada, saya hapus.
May I, sir?
All
Riani.
right, Riani, yes, Riani, please.
Okay. The goals and the objectives of language course should be designed to meet the needs of the language learner to help them develop and improve their communicative competence. Since the primary goal of learning a second language is to provide fluency and accuracy in written and spoken modes of communication, first, the language teacher and the learner should pay attention to design communicative activities which would help to develop the communicative competence. STEM 1983, 346 summarized competence in language teaching as A. The intuitive mastery of the forms of language. B. The intuitive mastery of the linguistic, cognitive, affective, and sociocultural meanings expressed by the language forms. C. The capacity to use the language with maximum attention to communication and minimum attention to form. D. The creativity of language use.
Okay, thank you, Riani. First, the goal and the objective of the language course should be designed to meet the needs of the language learners to help them develop and improve their communicative competence. Ini yang perlu dilakukan oleh guru, ya perlu dilakukan oleh kita. Untuk apa? Untuk mengenhance pragmatic competence. Since the primary goal of the learning of the second language is to provide fluency and accuracy in written and spoken modes of communication, first language teacher seperti kita ini and the learner should pay attention to design communicative activities which would help to develop the communicative competence. Caranya bagaimana dengan A, the intuitive mastery of the form of the language. B, the intuitive mastery of the linguistic, like cognitive, affective, and sociocultural meanings expressed by the language form again. C, the capacity to use the language with maximum attention to communication and minimal attention to the form. Jadi kalau ada murid kita yang salah grammar atau salah form, ya biarkan dulu, right? Biarkan dulu, jangan atas dimarahi gitu. Atau dosennya lebih fokus kepada grammarnya, nunggu diliatin bener ngomongnya mahasiswanya atau siswanya gitu ya, mereka menjadi grogi, right? So di sini tipsnya adalah, right, the capacity to use of the language with maximum attention to communication adalah yang penting mereka bisa ngomong dulu, alright, and minimum to attention to the form, okay, and the creativity of the language use. Creativity of the language use ya termasuk menggunakan antonym sinonim, termasuk menggunakan what is that? Termasuk menggunakan idioms, right, dan seterusnya. Next. Any one of you? Any one of you?
Maybe saya, sir.
Aziarnis. Okay.
Yes.
Aziarnis. Okay.
The language teacher should design the course material to engage the learners in the pragmatic, coherent, and functional uses of language for communicative purpose. As Ayrton claims that the functional study of language means studying how language is used, for instance, trying to find out what the specific purpose that language serves for us, and how the members of a language community achieve and react to these purposes through speaking, reading, writing, and listening. The pragmatic competence of the learner must be well developed. Consequently, he or she will be able to conduct communication with accuracy. The development of coherence and the ability to react in different situations show a good level of functional competence. The grammar of the target language should not be taught in isolation with its use. The learner should be able to put his or her knowledge of language into practice.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Aziarnis. The language teacher should design the course materials. Kita harus mendesain, course materialsnya to engage the learners in the pragmatics, ya. Untuk apa? Untuk membantu nih, untuk merangkul ya pragmatic coherence functional uses of language for communicative purposes. Ayrton claims the functional study of the language means studying how language is used. For instance, trying to find out what the specific purposes of the language serves for us and how the member of the language community achieve and react to these purposes through speaking, reading, writing, and listening. Jadi kita menggunakan fungsi bahasa ya pada tataran untuk mencapai ya suatu tujuannya apa sih? Tujuannya adalah language communications gitu. Nah, language communication through apa? Speaking, reading, writing, and listening. And pragmatic competence, the learners must be well developed. Consequently, he or she will be able to conduct communication with accuracy. The development of the coherence and the ability to react different situations show a good level of functional competence. The grammar of the target language should not be taught in isolation with use. The learner should be able to put his or her knowledge of language practice. Ya, itulah kenapa sekarang kan grammar tidak menjadi mata kuliah tersendiri. Tidak menjadi mata pelajaran tersendiri di SMP maupun di SMA. Kalau dulu ada grammar menjadi mata pelajaran sendiri gitu, sekarang enggak. Kenapa dia enggak menjadi bagian dari isolation, right? Kalau dosennya gurunya ingin mengajarkan grammar, maka dia akan mengambil pada linguistic features pada sebuah teks gitu, dan itu pun enggak banyak yang dijelaskan pada grammarnya. Yang diharapkan adalah itu. Okay, next.
May I, sir?
Yes, who is speaking? Desta. Yes, Desta.
3. There are a number of activities useful for the development of pragmatic competence. Moreover, they should raise the learner's awareness of the importance of such competence in the process of acquiring the target language. As May states, linguist behavior of social behaviors, people talk because they want to socialize in the widest possible sense of the word, either for fun or to express themselves to other humans, or for some serious purpose, such as building a house, closing a deal, solving a problem, and so on.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Desta. 3, there are a number of activities. Ada beberapa activities useful for the development of pragmatic competence. Moreover, they should raise the learner's awareness of the importance of such competence in the process of acquiring of the target language. May states linguistic behaviors is social behaviors. People talk because they want to socialize in the widest possible sense of the words, either for fun or to express themselves to other humans, or for some serious purposes, such as building a house, closing a deal, solving a problem, and so on and so on. Nah, intinya pada apa? Pada linguistic behaviors and social behaviors. Dengan adanya linguistic behaviors and social behaviors, maka they want to socialize ya, dengan bertemu. Ya. Nah, kuliah itu juga bagian dari linguistic behaviors and social behaviors, alright? Maka you kalau presentasi dengan temanmu berbahasa Inggris, you presentasi di depan dosen juga berbahasa Inggris, you membaca, menulis, mendengar juga berbahasa Inggris. It is part of the social behaviors. You ingin socialize juga dengan teman-temanmu di kelas itu dalam bahasa Inggris. So it is reliance. Okay. Next.
May I, sir?
Yes. Who is speaking?
Anita.
Anita 134. Okay, Anita 134.
Conclusion.
Yes.
The purpose of the application of different teaching and learning activities is to help students become more effective, fluent, and successful communicators in the target language. As Harlow 1990, page 348 states, most importantly, both teacher and textbook alike need to emphasize to the learners that language is composed of not just linguistic and lexical elements. Rather, language reflects also the social context, taking into account situational and social factors in the act of communication. since pragmatic competence is a combination of this factor, the development of the pragmatic ability should be accepted as one of the primary teaching goals. Students will be able to act different communicative patterns. They will find themselves active and involved in concert act in the classroom. Pragmatic competence will secure them good levels of grammatical and functional competencies as well. They will write fluently, coherently, and accurately. What is more, pragmatic competence will argue, their,
Argue. Argue.
argue their critical thinking.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Anita 134. Thank you. Conclusion. And the purpose of the application of different teaching and learning activities is to help students become more effective, fluent, and successful communicators in the target language. Jadi sebetulnya tujuannya itu, right? Tujuannya apa sih? More effective, fluent, and successive communicators in the target language. Arlo states, most importantly, both teachers and textbook alike need to emphasize to the learners that language is composed of not just linguistic and lexical elements, rather language reflects also the social context, taking into account situational and social factors. Jadi mengajarkan bahasa itu tidak selalu serta-merta hanya linguistic and lexical context, right? But then also situational and social factors. Okay. Since pragmatic competence is the combination of these factors, ada faktor-faktor di atas tadi, the development of the pragmatic ability should be accepted as one of the primary teaching goals. Students will be able to act different communicative patterns. They will find themselves active and involved in the concrete act in the classroom. Pragmatic competence will secure them good level of grammatical and functional competence as well. They will react fluently, coherently, and accurately. What is more, pragmatic competence will argue their critical thinking. All right. So that's all what I can say dealing with pragmatic competence. All right. And I am recording this kind of activities. So anyhow, if you are interested in having a recall what is actually our discussion today, you may take a look on YouTube. Okay. Thank you for your attention. See you again. Goodbye. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Bisa
sir.
Bapak link
Thank you, sir.
YouTube-nya
Thank you, sir.
atau nama YouTube-nya?
Ya, nama YouTube-nya, wait.
Atau mungkin bisa di-share grup nanti, sir.
Of course, of course.
Oh iya, nggak apa-apa ya.
Of
Terima
course.
kasih Bapak.
Yeah, I want to take a look, take picture. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.